Today's episode is brought to you by Modern Grower, a proud retailer of the Sumi Soaker system. The Sumi Soaker system is an irrigation game changer. It offers multiple advantages for market gardeners. Even gentle watering without dry spots common with wobblers. The system is lightweight and portable, so you can use it with quick rotation crops. It's low maintenance with no parts to break or clog. It's versatile. You can use it for direct seeding, transplants, and cover crops. And it's very cost effective compared to overhead options. And maybe one of its best and most unique features is it can put down water in a rectangular pattern, which is very different than rotating sprinklers that leave circular patterns, often with dry corners and overwatered centers. If you want to learn more about the Sumi Soaker system, use the link below or visit us at shop.moderngrower.co.
One way to add beneficial microbes to the soil is through compost. And one thing I see a lot of people commenting on this on YouTube, is they're always wanting to speed up compost. And from talking to people like Dr. Elaine Ingham, her belief is that a lot of agricultural soils are heavily bacterially dominated. And we need to move that closer to a 1-to-1 fungal to bacterial ratio where a lot of plants like it. So a lot of these quick composts, the theory, this is my theory, kind of piecing together a lot of knowledge, is if you're composting stuff real quickly using manures and grass clippings and stuff like that, you're getting a lot of bacteria in there. You're not giving fungi the time to go in to really develop, to increase the diversity, to increase the amount, and you're not giving really them the food that they want. So if I create a quick compost and I'm done in 30 days, it might look great. It might be this brown stuff. Is it safe to assume that time is needed to develop the fungi that are going to benefit the soil, or using quick compostable ingredients and a lot of turning where you're generating all this heat? Do you think you can build up fungi in a pile like that, given your knowledge of fungi and how they proliferate?
Well, I mean, the first question is what kind of fungi? I mean, there's anywhere from 1.5 to 6 million fungal species in the world, and many of them live in the soil. So that's one of these things I always think about with, we just need more fungi in our soil. Well, what kind? And there's a huge questions there, because we can isolate some fungi out of the soil, as I said early on, and there's easy ways to do that. Even the simpler molds and things, trichoderma is one, but there's many other molds you can isolate from the soil and look at and name. But then you ask, okay, well, what's it doing in the soil? What's its ecological role? I don't know. It's probably a decomposer. That's what I've been told in some more advanced workshops and things I've taken, and looking into the literature. It's just, this is what it is. This is how we name it. It's like, okay, well, what's it doing? And it's just because, again, like you, I think, said earlier, we don't actually know. It's not anybody's real fault. It's just that even after decades looking at it, it's about as far as we've come. So, and I greatly respect Dr. Ingham's work. It's just one of the things I've always thought there when I've seen some of her work and some of the people that referenced it and things, is just sort of vague references. And again, it might just be that, she doesn't know what fungi she's seeing. It's actually quite difficult and expensive to sequence it and get the genetics. So you're just looking at mycelium and try to make broad categorizations, which I totally understand. But if we're, I definitely in the future would love, just like with indigenous microorganisms and some of the Korean natural farming stuff where they're just growing wild molds and adding it in, I'd love to see more fine-tuned research, which I hear is occurring in that realm, to figure out exactly which species are going on. And because once we know that, we don't know what we're talking about. We got to get our basic grammar down and our terms and which species, and then we can look at, and then study them individually, under controlled settings. They prefer this type of food. They have a preference for, there's many different foods in the soil and which ones are eating what. And then ultimately and then which ratio do we want of these dozens of different fungi? And now that's obviously quite complex, way too far in the future for us right now when we just want to make it happen. But that's where I think we need to start thinking. At least this is where my mind goes with it. As far as going back to what your question was, there is lots of fungi in compost. I've actually only found one study, and maybe there's something new that I haven't come across, but I've looked in this a number of times over the years of, okay, fungi and compost, because I get this question every so often. There's one that I found where they did all the work. They made a normal aerobic compost pile, and then they also had vermicompost, and they compared the fungal communities in both, and there was mostly what it just concluded was there was, I think, 120 in one group and 150 different species or taxa in the other group, and there was a good bit of overlap, and that was pretty much the conclusion of the paper. Again, not a real strong conclusion. Which one's doing what, and which one do we want? And when it comes out of the soil or out of the compost pile, which ones survive in the soil and do the good things there? So, and ultimately there isn't some perfect protocol to get the most perfect fungi, because we still don't even necessarily know which of these many microfungi that we find in composts and soils and molds rather are the good ones. So again, it's a roundabout way of me saying I don't know, but it's sort of the line of thinking we need to realize that we don't know. And I think it's really important in the realm of mycology and in all sciences and things to really acknowledge what we don't know, so that the next generation or ourselves can actually answer the question, rather than coming up with sort of simple or shorter sort of little snippets. And for simplicity's sake, it eases the conversation, but it doesn't propel the harder thinking that we kind of need, especially in this topic, which is obviously very important. In as much as, how can we get again, cultivate more fungi in our soils and things, it comes back to some of the stuff that I was talking about in the last question is, as far as the molds go, they seem to just show up. As compost makers know, the more diversity of sources you get, the more diverse organisms you're going to get. Ideally, they're coming from healthy systems. If you're into the Korean natural farming thing, where you're basically harvesting wild molds in the forest using rice, that sounds great. That's a fairly newer realm to me, and there's not a lot of research there. And I'd love to see that further develop in the West and all that, to see how, because that seems to be obviously a great notion. But as far as, the best practice to get the most fungi in your compost or in your soil, there really isn't a great strategy other than, I'd follow along with Dr. Ingham says, just recognizing there are some generalizations out of necessity, I think, based on, what she's maybe able to say, or at least for her to translate to the beginner as well.
If you enjoy this podcast, then be sure to check out Farm Small, Farm Smart Daily, where you can get your daily dose of farm wisdom. Tune in every day to learn the latest tips, tricks, and stories from the world of farming. Whether you're a seasoned farmer or just getting started, our podcast has something for everyone. Join us as we explore topics like farm business, crop planning, soil management, and tools and technology. Start your day off right with Farm Small, Farm Smart Daily, available on all major podcast platforms. Don't miss out. Subscribe today.